Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 224. Today we're talking DAs. Can you change them? Lots of things about them. Maybe some things that you don't know, ways to maximize them. Just tips on DAs, really. Let's jump on in. Episode 24. Hello and welcome to episode 24. I'm Hilary Saxton. This is Bob Anderson. Hey, Barb.
Hey, Hilary, how are you going?
You notice my American accent?
Yeah, you're practicing for the New York trip.
I'm practicing for the New York trip.
The Academy Awards.
Stevie
Awards, as it turns out.
The Stevie Award collection. I'm up for four prizes. I think I can't stop talking about it because I'm very excited. But anyway, today, less about that. This book here won an award at the Able Book Awards on the weekend.
Congratulations.
Yeah, you're welcome. There's a lot of awards. So you can go into awards and somebody has put nominations in for me. And so this one won an award for the best mindset and NLP book under that category. So it is really about mindset. If you're interested in improving your mindset, then 3 Wines In is for you. It won the Able Book Award 2025. But anyway, less about that. Let's go back to property. Bob, before we unpack DAs, which are?
Development approvals.
Okay, that's so funny because we did to do take 3 on that because Bob said that to me the first 2 times. Yes, which are, and I keep saying design approvals, and I was like, oh, how did I get that wrong? And then I did it again, and then I did it again. So yeah, full disclosure, we had a couple of false starts.
That's what happens though when you get something in your mind, even though you know you got to change it, it just keeps jumping up. It's like a repeat.
The good thing about the fact that we did that was we both started laughing. We're like, oh my gosh. And then because I did it again, I was like, oh, let's just restart the podcast so that the poor editor doesn't have to put herself to sleep. Because if we turn to the camera and start again, we may have been looking at each other one way and then turn to the other, and then it's just hard for her. So anyway, goodness me. So we are talking DAs today. But before we do, Bob, what's your tip for the week?
Oh, well, it's sort of a tip, but it's sort of a confession.
Oh, hang on a minute. Yes.
Father Hilary. Yeah, well, you know the plants, those nice green ones, I thought one of them looked like it might need a nice dose of sun. I haven't told you this yet. So I put it on the back deck. I think I might have like slightly cooked it.
Seriously? I just repotted them because
I know
they got slightly cooked.
The potting looks good.
Thank you.
He's a bit curly on the edges. I think he copped a little bit of sunburn. So I guess be careful what plants you put in the sun. Maybe.
How about we could make that you stay in your wheelhouse, which isn't anything to do with the plants, and leave it to me.
That's the other tip.
Yes. If it's not your thing, don't do it.
If you don't have a green thumb plus all your other fingers, which mine aren't.
I don't either have a green thumb. The florist next door gives them to me when they look like they're dying and says, could you bring these back to life?
Yeah, but you talk to them.
Yes.
You do talk to plants.
And I give them names.
It's a mindset thing and you talk to them.
Yeah. So currently at rehab at our house for the florist, the ones in rehab currently are Colin, Rupert and Gordon.
All our plants get a name.
Yes.
When they come home for rehab. That's the problem. Like it was rehabbing.
Yeah. And
I think I might have just upset it. Might have to be put on a drip.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we have to move on from this. I'm going to have to rip home after this podcast and check. So you listening, that's Bob's tip. I think what we can take away from that is if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it.
Or learn what to do. I should have done a course in horticulture or...
maybe not that big.
No, maybe not.
But yes, okay.
I should have just listened to you.
No, I didn't say anything. Anyways, we're waffling. Let's get on to the podcast.
Yep, do it.
The book this week goes to Chris. Oh, Chris, how do you say your last name? A name that starts with TS. It's not ST. It's like senseless.
Like Costa Zoo.
Yeah, I don't know. I said to Bob, how do I say that? He goes, is that tinnitus? I'm like, no. So, Chris, this is coming to you. You're going to have to give me a call and tell me how I pronounce your last name. And I did say it was going to Nick Flynn, but Nick, yours is going to have to be next week now because this one was already promised. So this is going to be in the post to you, Chris. If it hasn't already been posted, actually, it's got a tick. You've already got it, or you'll be receiving it in the next day or two. Bob, we're talking today DAs.
Yep. Which are? Development
approvals.
Well, it's 2 things.
Yes.
It's a development application when you lodge it at council. We call that a DA, like lodging a DA, lodging a development application. When it gets approved, we still call it a DA, but then it's a development approval once it's approved. But both of those are DAs.
Oh,
So you could have a site with a DA, which means it's already approved for it to, the development application's been approved. Or you can say, I'm lodging the DA on Friday, which means I'm lodging the development application on Friday. So one becomes the other, hopefully. Hopefully you get an approval, and they're both DAs.
so Bob, when we started talking DAs the other day, I don't know what led to this discussion or how we got there, but we got onto the fact that sites can have multiple DAs. Could you please unpack that?
Okay, well, that's true. They can. I saw a site once that had 3 current DAs. So when you talk about a site, let's say having a development approval or a development permit, if you want to use it, on it, they last for a certain amount of time, and that will depend on the council. It might be 4, 5 or 6 years that a development approval lasts for before you have to either just forget about it, or you can get it renewed. You have to apply to get it renewed. A lot of the time you do get it renewed without too much trouble, but we can cover that later. But yeah, so maybe during that, let's say 4, 5 or 6 years, you can lodge another DA. You don't have to eliminate the prior DA to lodge a new one. And it might be for different reasons that you might do it, but you can have 3. Like you could have I'll just pluck it, an 800 square metre lot, which you could build a house on. But let's say it was zoned that you could also do townhouses or whatever. Well, you could have an approval to subdivide it into 2 lots, and that could be a current approval. You could have an approval also at the same time to build maybe 3 townhouses on it. And at the same time, you could also have an approval to build, let's say, 5 or 6 2-bedroom units or whatever happens to fit on. So you could have 3 totally different uses approved on the same lot at the same time.
And that would be...
Or more than 3.
It would just come down to profit really at the end, that you just choose which you wanted.
Whatever's better. Or what I've done on quite a few occasions is I might have bought a site that had a development permit on it, but I wasn't 100% happy with it. And I mean, we could talk about that anytime you like, but I may have changed it a bit. I may have changed it totally and lodged a whole new one, but I might have just changed it a bit. I've done plenty of those.
We're going to get to that, I know.
Oh, yeah.
What are the risks in changing a DA, Bob? So what are there any, and what are they?
Well, not really, other than if you're not going to use it, you're just wasting your money.
How much are we talking for a change? What's the cost generally?
Well, it depends. So let's go back. It depends on whether you have to lodge a whole new DA. So those examples I said that you might have 3 current approvals on the same lot. I said a 2-lot subdivision, and I said, let's say 3 townhouses. Well, they're totally different uses. So that would be a whole fresh DA. And then you could come along and not like either of those and say, well, I want to do 6 2-bedroom apartments. And that would be a whole new one because it's very, very different from the current DA that's on the site. So you'd have to do a whole new one. On some occasions, I've had to do a new one because I just didn't like anything about the old one. And a few examples of those. Or I might have just wanted to amend it a bit. So, and depending on how much you change it depends on whether you have to go all the way back to the beginning and start with a whole new fresh DA, or whether you can amend the existing DA enough to give you what you want, the changes you want, without having to unwind it all the way back to the beginning.
Is there a percentage of the amount of almost structure that you change that determines that, Bob? Or what determines at which point you have to go back and create a new DA rather than just alterations or variations?
It's obviously a totally different use, like the example, 2-lot subdivision, 3 townhouses, 5 or 6 apartments, very different uses. So obviously you have to go right back to the beginning. What councils don't like is if you muck around with the exterior. You think about getting a development approval. Sometimes it's just a consent use, or depending on the state where you are, that different terminology. It might be like code accessible, for instance. Code accessible means that you don't have to put it out for public advertising, public notification. You skip that step. So you lodge your application at council. It doesn't have to be advertised So you don't have to put a sign on the block and add in the paper or whatever else or that needs to be done, neighbours informed. You can skip that process, and then council can ask questions, information request, and then ultimately, let's say they approve it. So there's no public advertising or notification about it.
So are you just saying there that when there becomes public notification and advertising, when it's not code accessible, then that's likely to incur charges and...
Well, I use that code accessible, that's a Queensland term, so
Yes.
It's different in every state. But the level above that has a high level of compliance is where you do have the public advertising, and obviously the public get to find out about it. They can object if they want to, or they might say it's a great idea. They're not all objections. You can also lodge at council that you think it's a really great idea and you want to support it.
Hold on.
But
how often does that happen?
It can. I've got the world record for it.
Really? What'd you do?
Well, I don't know if it's a world record. I had to bring us back to that point because I'll forget.
Come on, bring us back to what I'll forget too.
Where we're up to.
Okay, yeah.
A bit difference between, let's say, code accessible and impact accessible.
Yes,
but quick little story because people love stories. I had a proposition before a council once, and it was quite a complex proposition. It was for a subdivision. Also, retirement village was part of the whole thing. It was a bit of a small master plan sort of thing. And in the end, I had 300 objectors.
I remember that story. The world record.
But I had 315 people in favour. And so that was a submission is where somebody from the public basically puts their opinion into council, what they think about it. Let's keep it like that. And I had 300 people that said, no, don't want it. And 315 people that said, yeah, it's a good idea. I'd like it. Ultimately, it's council's choice. That one didn't go through.
Did you rally the people up to get the other three?
A bit of rallying.
How did you rally?
Door knocking.
Did you?
Yeah.
You're like a politician.
I bet like that. I kissed a few babies.
Did you?
Yeah, shook a few hands.
Oh, look at you go.
Look at me go.
But
I don't know anything else that's had 60. I'm sure that there may have been some really huge projects somewhere that warranted it.
Do that many people care that either object or vote for?
It wasn't even in the city. Like it was in outside of Ipswich, outside of Ipswich, a distance outside of Ipswich in Queensland. Anyway, 615 submissions was pretty good.
You'll take that as the world record?
Yeah. So I had a public, what would you call it, consultation
Forum?
with the public, because the council said, oh, look, there's a lot of to's and fro's, lots of noise about this. How about you have a public meeting and give people an opportunity to come and talk about it? And I think I've told you that one. Yeah. I did, and the police had to escort us out at the end. And there was Queensland Times had a headline the next morning, lynch mob runs developer out of town. That was me. I wasn't the lynch mob. I was the guy running from the Rove.
Oh, my gosh. I hope you kept that newspaper somewhere.
I'd have to find it.
No.
Anyway, that's digressing.
So we're talking to code accessible and impact accessible.
Impact accessible is where the public has a chance to object, and they look at, they're publicly on display, the proposal, the plans and everything. So they're a bit more sensitive because the public's had an opportunity to look at it and so forth. So that can be a bit more sensitive in terms of changes. And generally what councils don't like is they don't like you to change the outside.
What's the reason for that?
Because that's what people have seen.
Right.
And that's what people have had the opportunity to either say they like it or they don't like it.
Right.
Now, if you go and change that, then you're sort of undone the process where people could object to it, But what's inside, they don't get to see. Like, for instance, what's inside the walls? Where's the kitchen, where's the bathroom, and that sort of thing. So what I've done on a number of occasions, I may have moved things around inside. Like I've put a bathroom on the other side of a townhouse, like a wall, or moved the kitchen, moved the bathroom, made the bedrooms bigger or smaller, done things inside. I've even added an ensuite where there was only one bathroom. And because all those things are inside, the council was okay because I'm not touching the outside.
And are the fees involved in those changes significant or not really?
Not really. So if the change isn't a lot and you don't have to go right back to the beginning, because that's I mean, sometimes you have to.
Mm.
But if you don't have to go back to the beginning, firstly, you're saving money and you're saving time, because you'll skip a couple of steps in the process if you only need amend the DA as opposed to like starting fresh. And that's called different things. But generally in accordance is a term you'll see town planners use and councils, which means you're making some changes, but the overall changes are generally in accordance with what was approved. And that's called a GIA. I know you love acronyms. Generally in accordance. And that means that you don't have to unwind it all the way back to the beginning. You'd amend the plans a bit, get the building designer or whoever to amend the plans a bit. They're relodged at council. There's a fee, but not a big fee. And it doesn't take that long.
I want to talk about that timing. So you've got a DA that's approved, and then you make an amendment. Do you prefer amendment or variation? Is there a difference in those two words? Are they the same thing? Okay, so
amendment is probably more commonly used.
So you make an amendment. You said it doesn't take too long and different councils have different speeds for DAs. So let's look on average at whatever your council, the time takes. What is that time process to have that change, that amendment approved?
Well, the usual answer varies considerably, but I'm thinking of one I did where it was a 7 townhouse site and it came with a development approval. I didn't really like the outside. I didn't like the materials that they used on the outside, but I didn't want to change them because if I did, I probably would have had to start from scratch. And so I thought, okay, I'll leave the outside alone, but inside it only had 1 bathroom. So up the second level of the 7 townhouses, upstairs had bedrooms but 1 bathroom. So we managed to rejig things and ended up with an ensuite off the main bedroom. So I dropped an ensuite in that wasn't there previously. But you could, like looking from the outside, you wouldn't know that. So nothing there, maybe a little window somewhere. Also downstairs was a multi-purpose room with like a little powder room. And I managed to swing that around into a bedroom plus another bathroom. And so now I've got turned a multi-purpose into a bedroom with another bathroom downstairs. And that's a big thing when you're renting, is to have that. Somebody could be pretty much independent down there with their own bathroom, their own bedroom, away from the other bedrooms. And upstairs, when I added the ensuite, the other 2 bedrooms were upstairs. Each bedroom had a bathroom. So I ended up with 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. And the intention and what we did with those is we kept all 7 of them as investments. And they were great. They rented, I think we rented the whole 7 out in like 10 days. And so that was a good thing. There's also a funny raggedy shade cloth thing on the plans going over a little outside patio. So we turned that into a solid roof, just for a lot of reasons really, and that was okay. That's the only thing we did outside, but that was more in the courtyard at the back of one of the units. Is not to have a cloth shade sail, but to have a solid thing, and that was considered okay. It wasn't really changing the outside much at all, hardly at all, and so that was generally in accordance. So getting back to your question, in current day dollars, because it was a while ago since I did that, cost was probably overall about $4,500, and there was a little bit of that cost was just changing a few things on the design. So the architect, to draw in rejig the upstairs to add in the extra bathroom and rejig the little bottom area from a powder room into a bathroom and a bedroom. So a bit there, and a bit at the council. So let's say it was like $1,500 for the architect, $3,000 for the council. But they only have to look at that and decide if it's generally in accordance. And they decided it was generally in accordance, therefore they approved it. It took about 4 weeks.
Is there potential for a problem if a DEA is getting close to running out of time? What's the word you use for that?
Yeah, well, expiring.
Yes, expiring is the word I'm after. So if a DA is close to expiring and potentially, say that council has had some changes in their zoning and you have a variation and then it expires, could that end in disaster?
Well, it might mean you can't roll it over. So with development permits, let's pick a figure, 5 years. Let's say in this particular council, they last for 5 years.
What's the standard?
Oh, it's between 4 and 6 usually. Like, does vary a bit. When you roll it over, it doesn't necessarily mean it's another 5 either. Some councils say, well, you roll it over, it's 1 year or 2 years or whatever. They really like, if it was 5, you get another 5. It's a bit different from your might be a bit like your license. It's every, I don't even know how many years, but when you get older, they shorten it up. It's a bit like that. So
my mum should not be on the road. She turned 85 yesterday. She should not be on the road. Just while we're talking about licenses.
Well, yeah, I haven't been in the car much with your mother.
No, you don't.
Usually drive her around. So the situation there is you have to make a start. And some councils say a substantial start.
On the development itself.
On the development.
Is it before it expires or as it expires?
Yeah, before it expires.
Right.
So let's just say your 5 years is coming up. But really, if your 5 years is coming up, what you should do is probably at least 4 months out beforehand is lodge it to get, I'll say to get rolled over. And that gives everybody enough time. There's a small fee involved.
What's the fee?
Can't remember. And it varies with councils.
Yeah, but nothing like the initial lodgement fee.
Oh, no, it might be,
like a quarter of it?
3,000, 4,000. It's not much.
Yep.
They don't have to do much. They've really only got to decide,
They're councils, Bob. They don't do much.
Do we roll it over or not? Oh, that might take a meeting of 10 people, a morning perhaps, and a few coffees, some cakes, maybe a couple of muffins, and to decide if they're going to roll it over or not.
Talk about golf for an hour.
Yeah.
How'd the fishing go? Oh, what about this thing here? Yeah, roll that.
So you'd start ahead of time anyway,
yep.
Like at least 4 months. So give everybody time. But you could make a substantial start. And what is a substantial start? Well, it does vary a bit. Some people might say, it's putting up a fence around the property. It could be turning some soil, but you can't really turn much soil when you only got a development permit. Like you need a building permit or a construction certificate to turn the soil. So what is it? What is a substantial start? And I've seen.
Yeah, what can it be? So it could be like putting the fence. What are other things?
The council or a town planner will tell you what it is in that area. What's it mean to make a start? It's not really substantial necessarily because you can't do much. It's only a development permit. If you went on and got a building permit, let's say, but now you're going backwards and you want to get your development permit fixed, well, it might affect your building permit because things might have changed. So back to your question, why would they let it roll over? Well, if nothing much has changed, they just let you roll it over. They're not out there to like kill you. And a few dollars doesn't hurt the coffers for the council. But you see, like you alluded to, what happens if the planning scheme's changed? Let's say...
Because I've heard of that happening.
Well, particularly if it's gone backwards. And look, planning schemes, when they change, don't usually go backwards. What I mean by going backwards is make it harder or density drops. Like you rarely see a council that allows a 3-level height limit go back to a 2-level height limit. You might see them more likely in the area where it's got a 2-level height limit to allow it to go up to 3-level, because the pressure on councils caused by the state and federal governments as well is to allow more density. And that pressure is always there from the state and the feds. Councils, of course, don't like being told what to do, and they can get their back up a bit, but ultimately, they can get their heads kicked by the state. But sometimes you do see things go backwards a bit, rather than go forwards, and that could happen. Let's say an area allowed 3-level height limit, and you got a development permit to do 3-level townhouses. In the meantime, council have changed it. Now you can't do more than 2 levels. Well, they're probably not going to let you roll it over. You could rely on that DA and do 3 levels. Like say it's a five-year DA and you got an approval to do 3 levels. Let's say at year 2 or 3, council decided we're going to drop the planning scheme back to 2 levels.
It's like tough. I already got my stamp.
Yeah, and you can do the 3 levels.
Yep.
Within that 5-year time frame, and that's okay. But if you hadn't done anything and you want it rolled over, then that could be a problem. They won't roll it over. And then what you'd have to do then, well, your DA would be worthless basically. And then you have to consider, well, do I now have to get a whole fresh DA and do 2-story townhouses? And of course then you've got to do your numbers, do your fee zone. Is it really worth it? Does it stack up? Or what do I do? Do I have to change my mind about the type of development I'm going to do? So that it can actually go backwards. Well, that could be another reason why you want to change your DA. You might be sitting on a DA. Well, I'm thinking of some areas when the town city plan changed, a particular city plan where they had 2-story townhouse area, and they changed it to 5-story apartments where you could go up to 5 levels.
What the heck?
Well, I did a lot of 5-story apartment buildings back in the 2013, 14, 15 era that were previously 2-story townhouse sites. And like, why would you do a 5-story building? That's if you could afford to do it. And so that, I mean, that's an uplift. So if you had an approval to do maybe 3 or 4 townhouses on your 800 square metres, and the zoning changed, all of a sudden you can do a 5-story building and have 14 apartments and ground level parking without even going to a basement. You'd probably go that way. And so you say, oh, I'll throw the old one in the bin. Well, you don't have to throw it in the bin. You can just do a fresh one for apartments. You'd have 2 DAs. You'd have your old one for your townhouses and your new one for your apartments. But the one you'd proceed with is the apartment one.
So you don't have to, by law or by council regulations, cancel a DA to make a new one. Just as you were talking about that, Bob, and this isn't the angle we're going on, but I think it's probably a good time to bring up when we talk about sites that have a DA. And I suppose very often sites have a DA and they're up for sale. Not very often, but it can be more likely these days because people don't know how to do their numbers properly, so they can't get finance. They apply for a DA, they get a DA and then they put it up for sale. So that is something people need to look out for. And I just noticed even where we live, there's a site for sale. It's, what do you call it when they're distressed site? So somebody's got
a mortgagee in possession.
Yeah, it's a mortgagee in possession. That's right. And in our wee town, I don't know if you've seen it recently. So we've got one, and it just
it's got an approval, has it?
I think so. Yeah, but when I drove past, I just thought, someone who thought, hey, I can, a good spot, and I'll build this here, and it won't work.
It sounded like they haven't kept up with their mortgage, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it sold within the last couple of years, and now, yes, that's happened. But I suppose when this isn't the angle, like I said, that we're talking on, but I just wanted to sort of bring into the fact that sometimes sites for sale with the DA is because it doesn't work. But what you're saying is you could look at that with new eyes, and what does work, because you could just get another DA on it, and that's probably something that not everybody thinks about, Bob.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can just override the existing one. It'll stay there until you just go ahead with a better DA,
And the only way that's ever a problem is the person selling will think, well, it's got a DA, I want to get that uplift, because that's sort of a strategy that people use. But if that doesn't work, I mean, if they're sitting on it and it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, there's not much DA uplift in a small project.
No.
And you really make your money by going all the way, not getting a DA. It's usually bigger projects. And particularly if there's a rezoning involved where you get a big uplift when you get a DA. If you're in an area that's zoned for townhouses and there's like 1,000 blocks that will all take 3 townhouses, and you go and get a DA for 3 townhouses, you really haven't done much. It'll go up by about as much as you spend on it. You won't get a big DA uplift. But when we're talking about sites with DAs, I've bought quite a few in the past with DAs, but I've thrown way more in the bin. The issue with buying a site with a DA is they're often overpriced. And they're overpriced because the people that are selling them, I mean, they might sell them for a whole heap of reasons, but they think it's worth telephone numbers because they've got a DA.
There. I knew you were going
And more
there.
often than not,
yeah,
it's only gone up by the amount of money they spend on it. So if they spent $40,000 getting a DA, it's probably only gone up by 40. If the market's gone up during that time, though, they'll pick up the market uplift, but they would have picked it up if they did nothing. So generally not a big thing. A DA it saves you time. It could be in an area that you've got a tough council and DAs are hard to get. That might be where you would get some DA uplift, because it's always difficult, painful, drawn out affair to get a DA with some councils. So if there's a site in there with a DA, then you're saving all that, so you'll pay a bit more for it. But you'll only pay enough that it still stacks up, makes enough profit.
And the reason for that is because time costs money. So you're speeding up that time that you're not having to borrow money.
Yeah, the reason I did quite a lot of syndicates between about 2012 and 2016, 17, where we put multiple, investors into projects, and we wanted to just get cracking. We didn't want to spend, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months getting a DA and just sitting around waiting. So I particularly targeted sites with DA so that we knew first exactly what we were buying because it was approved, and we got a head start. So all we had to do is get a building permit and get into it. But I threw a lot in the bin, but I found enough to make it worthwhile. So I guess the question is, why do people sell sites with DAs? Why don't they just do it? And all sorts of reasons. Sometimes a lot of the people that get a DA on their site aren't developers. And so the DA is a stupid one. It's the wrong product. It's a bad design. There's lots of reasons. You only got to look at it and say, I might have a DA, but I'm not going to build that rubbish.
Classic wood duck. No idea.
It's not built for the market. Or they got too many on. I bought a site once that was on the market for about 18 months and it had an approval for 5 townhouses, but they were so cramped up that nothing worked inside. The whole kitchen, dining, living area just did not work at all. And it was hopeless. And I think a lot of people didn't realise you weren't stuck with it.
I remember the design for those. You walked in, the dining table was basically in the thoroughfare, and the kitchen wasn't big enough. It was terrible.
Everything was wrong. And that was a case of someone putting 5 townhouses on a site that should have only taken 4. And so the price kept dropping because no one would buy it. But then it got to a point where it was actually worth buying and throwing throw the old one in the bin, but just go and do a whole fresh 4 townhouse design rather than the 5 townhouses.
I love that you said the price kept dropping. I always think race to the bottom. It was just a race to the bottom.
Yeah, but it reached a point where it was then worthwhile spending the money and taking the time to get a development permit for something that worked. And we've seen plenty of examples of people just not understanding that just getting a DA doesn't necessarily make it worth a lot more money at all. And so they haven't achieved a lot.
I suppose my takeaway today, just from our chat, is, and it's something I've never considered, looking at sites that have a DA with eyes of, I can change it, knowing you can, but as a strategy, I can actually change that DA. It doesn't have to be what it is.
And it mightn't have to be changed a lot. If you could do something like a generally in accordance, that costs very little money, it doesn't take much time, but makes it work. A design that works, like I mentioned one I did, extra bathroom. Like people weren't buying three bedrooms with 1 bathroom. So fix that, fixed a few things up and bingo.
Bingo. All right. It sounds like a great plan. Just another way to look for sites that have potential that people don't really consider. Bob, what do you think for just new people? What's your biggest tip for new people lodging a DA, new developers? What's your biggest takeaway there for them?
Well, you have to design and build for the market, your market in that area. It could be quite different from 4-5 suburbs away. Different price points, different types of buyers, different motivation, like people that want different. So in your area, before you ever go out and lodge a development permit with all the plans, you have to make sure those plans satisfy the market that's going to buy in there. And so you have to understand your market, really understand what size townhouses are they, what are the minimum sizes of your own bedrooms. Don't go and make them too small. What about the standard of finish is more comes in on the building permit side rather than development permit, but you need to know exactly what your market wants. And it can vary. We've done upmarket duplexes where you have to have a swimming pool. They only want 3 bedrooms, not 4. The bedrooms can be upstairs. There has to be another living area upstairs. The kitchen has to have a butler's pantry. They love a high downstairs, maybe even up to 3 meters in some places. In some cases, they might even like a lift, but not all. So these are the things you need to know. Whereas you could go into another upmarket area where they sell for just as much money, but somewhere else. And I know exactly these different areas that are like this, where they want 4 bedrooms, not 3. They want 1 downstairs and 3 up. They do want an extra living up. They're okay with a single garage.
As you're saying that, I know whose design you're talking about. There's a couple of mentoring students.
At least 4.
Yeah. Well, okay, there I go 4. Where designs, because I questioned them.
And they don't need a swimming pool.
Yeah.
Which is quite different. So these are 2 examples, upmarket duplexes in 2 different areas, quite different. Similar size. That's about the only thing they've got in common. And a similar standard of finish, but design very different. And so you go in there with, back to your question.
Yep. Know your market.
Know your market. There's lots more to getting it right than doing that. But if you ask me for one tip, know your market.
That's your tip for the day. Bob, I think we've done quite well. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wind this one up on DAs?
Well, not really, other than people haven't worked it out. It takes all varying amounts of time to get a development permit. And there are some fast-track methods in some places, some states, some councils of getting things through quicker if they tick the certain amount of boxes. So the quicker you get your DA, the better, because it cuts down your holding costs, unless you've got a long settlement on a contract. So, look, it does. Yeah, DAs, some people say to me, oh, how long does it take to get a DA? Well, how deep's a hole? How long's a piece of string? It does vary a bit. And so you need to know as well how long these things are going to take in your council area. It's all just part of market knowledge, just get and understand the market,
So I think we sum this one up with, you can get a DA. You can change a DA. You could look for a site with a DA and see if you could change it. There's just plenty of options. It's reasonably simple to change.
Can be, depending on the amount of change and where the change is.
And generally, try not to change the outside. That's where people get upset. But I think lots of wee tips in that one, Bob. Quite an interesting chat today. Enjoyed it myself. Hey, well, if you are interested in having a chat with us about property development, there's always a link below. One of the team will reach out to you, and we would love to chat with you if you're keen on learning to do property development from Property Mastermind. Apart from that, Bob, thanks so much. As usual, the 40 plus years is certainly paying off. So I'm taking its toll. No, certainly paying off.
I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it.
Yeah, I hear you. People, that's what people do ask. Why do you still teach? It's like, because he loves teaching it. And
you know why people say that? Because there's this old saying that if you can't do it, teach it.
Yes.
And the university's full of people that either never did what they teach in most cases, or did it and failed, and then, I'll fall back on teaching. The answer to that is, if you can do both, why wouldn't you?
There you go.
Why wouldn't you? If you enjoy it. I mean, no point doing anything you don't enjoy. But I love property development, doing the deals, crunch the numbers, doing all that. And I particularly love teaching it.
And I suppose you and I could have that conversation of just then about that, because I knew who you were talking about when you were talking about those duplexes being different. And I know who's well, I know 2 students. You said 4, but I know of 2 of the plans that were like that, because you were looking at them and I questioned it at the time. And you know what? The interesting thing about both of those mentoring students are really private. People don't even know they're in the mentoring program. Neither of them, they're just doing it on their own, and they're both doing multiple. So that's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So
that's why we do what we do.
Yeah,
because we can, when we do.
And we like it.
Yeah, we do it. Yeah, that's right. We like it. We love it. We do it.
On that note, Bob, we'll pack this one in. This is episode 224. We're done and dusted. We'll catch you again next week.
Bye now.
Bye.